In the shadow of Sedona's majestic red rocks, 19-year-old Noah Beasley's lifeless body was discovered, surrounded by prescription pills, a grim end to his brief marriage to a wealthy 65-year-old woman. As investigators peeled back layers of lies and manipulation, they uncovered a sinister plot that would shock even the most hardened detectives. What dark secrets led to this young man's untimely demise in a paradise known for healing and rejuvenation? Sedona, Arizona, a place known for its stunning red rock formations, spiritual vortexes, and peaceful energy. But on October 8, 2021, this tranquil town became the backdrop for a chilling discovery that would shake its residents to the core. Noah Beasley, a shy 19-year-old with dreams of becoming a musician, was found dead in the luxurious home he shared with his 65-year-old wife, Gertrude J.Y. Hartford. The circumstances surrounding his death were as puzzling as the unlikely union between the teenage groom and his wealthy, much older bride. To understand the events that led to this tragic outcome, we need to rewind and delve into the lives of those involved. Noah's story begins in the neighboring town of Cottonwood, where he grew up under challenging circumstances. Noah was raised by his single mother, Jenna Beasley, in a modest trailer on the outskirts of Cottonwood. Life had never been easy for the Beasleys. Jenna struggled to make ends meet, working multiple jobs to keep a roof over their heads. The recent economic downturn caused by the pandemic had hit them particularly hard, with Jenna losing her primary source of income. Despite their financial hardships, Noah was known as a kind-hearted, if somewhat introverted, young man. His high school classmates remember him as the quiet kid who always carried a guitar on his back. Music was Noah's escape, his way of expressing himself in a world that often felt overwhelming. But as Noah graduated high school in May 2021, he found himself at a crossroads. While his peers were heading off to college or starting new jobs, Noah was still trying to figure out his path. The weight of his family's financial struggles bore heavily on his young shoulders. It was during this vulnerable time that Gertrude J.Y. Hartford entered Noah's life. At 65 years old, Gertrude was a force to be reckoned with. A retired heiress with a penchant for the finer things in life, she had been married and divorced multiple times. Known for her extravagant lifestyle and demanding personality, Gertrude was a well-known figure in Sedona's social circles. The details of how Noah and Gertrude first met remain murky. Some speculate that they crossed paths at a local music venue where Noah occasionally performed. Others suggest that Gertrude specifically sought out the young musician, attracted by his youth and naive charm. Regardless of how their paths intersected, what followed was a whirlwind romance that left everyone who knew Noah stunned and concerned. Within weeks of meeting, Gertrude and Noah announced their engagement, much to the shock and disbelief of their friends and family. The wedding took place at one of Sedona's most luxurious resorts, a stark contrast to the humble lifestyle Noah had known. Gertrude spared no expense, insisting on the finest decorations, gourmet catering, and a designer wedding gown that cost more than most people's annual salary. Eyewitnesses at the wedding described a surreal scene. Gertrude beamed with pride, basking in the attention and luxury. Noah, on the other hand, appeared uncomfortable and out of place. He fidgeted in his tailored suit, a far cry from his usual casual attire. Those who knew him could see the anxiety in his eyes, a silent cry for help that went unnoticed amidst the extravagant celebration. But perhaps the most unsettling aspect of the wedding was the reaction of Noah's mother, Jenna. While one might expect a parent to be concerned about their teenage son marrying someone more than 3 times his age, Jenna seemed oddly supportive of the union. She smiled and mingled with the guests, apparently at ease with her son's decision. As the newlyweds jetted off on their honeymoon, whispers and rumors circulated through Sedona and Cottonwood. What could have possessed Noah to enter into this marriage? Was it true love, despite the age gap? Or were there darker motivations at play? The weeks following the wedding brought little clarity to those questions. Noah and Gertrude settled into their life together in Gertrude's lavish Sedona home. From the outside, it appeared that Noah had landed in a life of luxury, far removed from the financial struggles of his past. But appearances can be deceiving. Those close to Noah noticed a change in his demeanor. The quiet, music-loving teen became even more withdrawn. He rarely picked up his guitar anymore, and when he did, the melodies were somber and melancholic. His few friends found it increasingly difficult to get in touch with him, as though he were slowly disappearing into the shadows of his new life. Gertrude, for her part, was often seen around town, shopping at high-end boutiques or lunching with her socialite friends. She spoke glowingly of her young husband, describing him as her muse and boy wonder. But there was an unsettling possessiveness in the way she talked about Noah, as though he were a prized pet rather than a partner. As September turned to October, tensions in the Hartford Beasley household seemed to escalate. Neighbors reported hearing frequent arguments, with Gertrude's shrill voice often rising above Noah's softer tones. There were whispers of Gertrude's notorious temper, her tendency to throw tantrums when things didn't go her way. But no one could have predicted the tragic turn of events that was about to unfold. On the morning of October 8, 2021, Marjorie Lane, an 82-year-old neighbor, was out for her usual morning walk when she noticed something amiss at the Hartford Beasley residence. The front door was slightly ajar, an unusual sight given Gertrude's obsession with security and privacy. Concerned, Marjorie approached the house and called out. When she received no response, she cautiously entered, only to be met with a scene that would haunt her for the rest of her days. Noah Beasley lay motionless on the living room floor, his body slumped against the couch. Scattered around him were several empty prescription bottles, their labels bearing Gertrude's name. A half-empty glass of water sat on the nearby coffee table, a silent witness to the tragedy that had unfolded. Marjorie, her hands shaking, immediately called 911. As she waited for the authorities to arrive, she couldn't help but recall the wedding she had attended just weeks earlier. The image of Noah, looking lost and overwhelmed in his tailored suit, now took on a haunting new meaning. Detective Marla Grunwald of the Sedona Police Department arrived at the scene shortly after 9 a.m. A seasoned investigator with a reputation for her sharp instincts, Grunwald immediately sensed that this was no ordinary overdose case. The living room where Noah's body was found was immaculate, save for the prescription bottles and the young man's lifeless form. There were no signs of struggle, no evidence of forced entry. It was, as Grunwald would later note in her report, too clean, too perfect. As the forensics team combed through the house, collecting evidence and taking photographs, Grunwald's mind was already racing with questions. Where was Gertrude? Why were her prescription medications scattered around Noah's body? And perhaps most importantly, what could have driven a 19-year-old newlywed to such a desperate act? As news of Noah's death spread through Sedona, the investigation quickly became complex, with multiple suspects emerging, each with their own potential motives. Firstly, Gertrude Hartford Beasley, the 65-year-old wife, was an obvious person of interest. Her prescription medications were found at the scene, and her whereabouts at the time of Noah's death were initially unknown. Moreover, her history of tumultuous relationships and controlling behavior raised red flags for the investigators. Second, Jenna Beasley, Noah's mother, who had seemed oddly supportive of her son's marriage to a much older woman, also came under scrutiny. Her financial struggles were well known, leading some to speculate that she might have pushed Noah into the marriage for monetary gain. And lastly, Harry Hartford, Gertrude's ex-husband, a wealthy real estate mogul, was another potential suspect. Rumors circulated that he had been furious about Gertrude's marriage to Noah, seeing it as a public humiliation. As Detective Grunwald and her team delved deeper into each suspect's background and possible motives, they uncovered a tangled web of lies, manipulation, and hidden agendas that would shock even the most hardened investigators. When questioned, Gertrude Hartford Beasley presented a calm and collected demeanor that Detective Grunwald found unsettling. Dressed in designer loungewear and sipping a mimosa by her pool, Gertrude seemed remarkably unaffected by her young husband's death. She claimed to have gone to bed early the night before, leaving Noah in the living room to play his computer games. According to Gertrude, she assumed Noah had fallen asleep on the couch when she didn't see him in bed the next morning. It wasn't until the police arrived that she learned of his death. Gertrude expressed surprise and a measure of sadness at Noah's passing, but her emotions seemed rehearsed, lacking the raw grief one might expect from a newly widowed bride. When asked about the prescription medications found near Noah's body, Gertrude stated that Noah had been struggling recently and had been prescribed medication to help him cope. But as Grunwald pressed further, inconsistencies in Gertrude's story began to emerge. The detective noted that the bed in the master bedroom appeared untouched, contradicting Gertrude's claim of having slept there. Moreover, Noah's friends insisted that he wasn't into video games, casting doubt on Gertrude's account of his activities the night before. While Gertrude's alibi seemed shaky, there wasn't enough evidence to hold her. But Detective Grunwald was far from satisfied. She knew there was more to this story, and she was determined to uncover the truth. The investigation took another turn when the focus shifted to Jenna Beasley, Noah's mother. Initially seen as a grieving parent, Jenna's role in the events leading up to Noah's death soon came under intense scrutiny. Detective Grunwald discovered that Jenna had a history of financial troubles, including multiple arrests for selling prescription drugs. This revelation cast her support of Noah's marriage to Gertrude in a new, disturbing light. Had Jenna pushed her son into this union for her own financial gain? When brought in for questioning, Jenna presented a starkly different image from the composed Gertrude. Dressed in worn clothes and chain-smoking, throughout the interview, Jenna appeared nervous and agitated. She admitted to encouraging Noah's marriage to Gertrude, describing it as an opportunity he couldn't pass up. But as the questioning intensified, Jenna's story began to unravel. She contradicted herself several times, at one point claiming she hadn't seen Noah in days, then later stating she had visited him the night before his death. Her nervous behavior and inconsistent statements only deepened the investigators' suspicions. Jenna vehemently denied any knowledge of the drugs found at the scene, insisting that Noah must have obtained them elsewhere. But her history of drug dealing and her obvious desperation to secure a financial future made her denials ring hollow. As Jenna left the police station, Detective Grunwald couldn't shake the feeling that this troubled mother knew more than she was letting on. The question remained: how far would Jenna go to ensure her own financial security? The investigation took yet another turn when Harry Hartford, Gertrude's ex-husband, emerged as a potential suspect. At 70 years old, Harry was a formidable figure in Arizona's business world, known for his ruthless tactics and vindictive nature. Harry's divorce from Gertrude had been finalized just months before her marriage to Noah, and it had been a bitter public spectacle. Gertrude had walked away with a significant portion of Harry's fortune, leaving him humiliated and seeking revenge. When questioned by Detective Grunwald, Harry presented a cool, calculated front. He freely admitted his anger over Gertrude's marriage to Noah, describing it as a slap in the face. However, he vehemently denied any involvement in Noah's death, providing a solid alibi for the night in question. According to Harry, he had been at a business dinner in Phoenix, meeting with potential investors for his latest real estate venture. Several high-profile attendees could vouch for his presence, making it difficult for the police to challenge his story. Despite his apparent innocence, Harry's demeanor raised red flags for Detective Grunwald. His responses seemed almost too rehearsed, as if he had anticipated the police's questions. Moreover, witnesses had reported seeing Harry in a heated argument with Gertrude just days before Noah's death, during which he allegedly told her she would regret their divorce. While Harry's alibi appeared airtight, Grunwald couldn't shake the feeling that he was somehow connected to the tragedy. But how? The detective knew she needed more evidence to unravel this complex case. But just as the investigation seemed to be hitting a dead end, a breakthrough came from an unexpected source. On October 15, 2021, an anonymous package was delivered to the Sedona Police Department. Inside was a USB drive containing a series of damning text messages between Gertrude Hartford Beasley and an unknown contact. The messages, dated just days before Noah's death, revealed a chilling plot. Gertrude had been planning to divorce Noah and cut him out of her will, using her knowledge of Jenna Beasley's illegal drug dealings as leverage. The text painted a disturbing picture of Gertrude's true feelings towards her young husband, describing him in crude and demeaning terms. "Sex with him is so vanilla," one message read. "His is smaller than my ring finger," another stated callously. The messages also revealed Gertrude's growing impatience with the situation. "If that Jenna thinks she's getting away with this, she's got another thing coming. I'll make sure she and that small pay." As Detective Grunwald and her team analyzed the messages, they made another startling discovery. The unknown contact was revealed to be a private investigator hired by Gertrude to dig up dirt on Jenna Beasley. This investigator had uncovered Jenna's drug dealing history and was feeding Gertrude the information she needed to execute her plan. The new evidence cast the case in a whole new light. It was clear that Gertrude had never loved Noah, viewing him instead as a pawn in a larger game of manipulation and revenge. But it also raised new questions about Jenna's role in the tragedy. Had Noah's own mother knowingly pushed him into this dangerous situation? With the new evidence in hand, Detective Grunwald intensified her focus on both Gertrude and Jenna. The investigation took on a new urgency as the full scope of the deception came into view. After days of relentless investigation, including extensive analysis of phone records and financial transactions, the final piece of the puzzle fell into place. On October 20th, 2021, Detective Grunwald made a shocking discovery that would blow the case wide open. happen. It wasn't Gertrude, Harry, or even an unknown assailant who was directly responsible for Noah's death. The true culprit was the person who should have protected him the most, his own mother, Jenna Beasley. As the evidence mounted, a disturbing picture emerged of Jenna's actions in the weeks leading up to Noah's death. Driven by desperation and greed, Jenna had orchestrated a sinister plan to use her own son as a pawn in a dangerous game of financial manipulation. The investigation revealed that Jenna had been secretly feeding Noah a cocktail of prescription drugs and sexual enhancers. Her goal was twofold: to keep Noah compliant in his marriage to Gertrude and to ensure he could perform sexually, maintaining Gertrude's interest. Jenna saw her son's union with the wealthy widow as her ticket out of financial ruin, and she was willing to go to extreme lengths to keep that ticket valid. But Jenna's plan had spiraled out of control. On the night of Noah's death, fearful that her son might leave Gertrude and shatter her dreams of financial security, Jenna had given him a stronger dose of drugs than usual. She hadn't intended to kill Noah, only to keep him docile and dependent. But Noah, already distraught over his loveless marriage and the weight of his mother's expectations, had taken even more pills on his own, leading to the fatal overdose. When Detective Grunwald confronted Jenna with the evidence, the facade of the concerned mother crumbled. Initially defiant, Jenna's demeanor quickly shifted to panic as the detective laid out the damning trail of text messages, phone records, and financial transactions that pointed to her guilt. "I never meant to hurt him," Jenna sobbed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I just wanted a better life for us. You don't understand what it's like to watch your child suffer, to not be able to provide for them." But Detective Grunwald was unmoved by Jenna's pleas. "What I understand," she replied coldly, "is that you used your son as a meal ticket. You pushed him into a situation that made him miserable, and when he wanted out, you drugged him to keep him compliant. Your actions directly led to his death, Mrs. Beasley. That's not love. That's abuse." The arrest of Jenna Beasley sent shockwaves through the communities of Sedona and Cottonwood. The image of the desperate mother being led away in handcuffs was splashed across local newspapers and television screens, leaving residents stunned and horrified. Noah's extended family, already reeling from his untimely death, was devastated by the revelation of Jenna's betrayal. The young man they had known as quiet and kind-hearted had been failed by the very person who should have protected him most. Gertrude Hartford Beasley, while not directly responsible for Noah's death, didn't escape scrutiny. Her cruel messages and manipulative behavior were made public, leading to her ostracization from Sedona's social circles. She retreated from public view, her reputation in tatters. Harry Hartford, though cleared of direct involvement in Noah's death, faced renewed interest in his business dealings and personal life. The scandals surrounding his ex-wife and her deceased young husband cast a shadow over his carefully cultivated image. Jenna Beasley's trial began in early December 2022, more than a year after Noah's death. The courthouse in Prescott, Arizona, was packed with reporters and curious onlookers, all eager to witness the final chapter in this tragic tale. Prosecutor Mark Christensen painted a damning picture of Jenna as a manipulative and selfish mother who had prioritized her own financial gain over her son's well-being. He methodically presented the evidence: the text messages, the drug transactions, the testimony of Noah's friends who had noticed his deteriorating mental state. Defense attorney Carita Vasquez faced an uphill battle. She argued that Jenna, while misguided, had acted out of a desperate desire to secure a better future for her son. Vasquez portrayed Jenna as a victim of circumstance, a struggling single mother who had made a terrible mistake. The trial lasted 2 weeks with testimony from Detective Grunwald, Noah's friends, and expert witnesses who spoke about the effects of the drugs found in Noah's system. Gertrude Hartford Beasley, in a surprising turn of events, was called to testify, her cold demeanor on the stand only serving to highlight the loveless nature of her marriage to Noah. On December 15, 2022, the jury returned their verdict after just 6 hours of deliberation. Jenna Beasley was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter. The jury believed that while Jenna hadn't intended to kill her son, her actions had directly led to his death. As the verdict was read, Jenna stood motionless, her face a mask of shock and despair. In the gallery, Noah's friends and extended family wept quietly, the verdict bringing a measure of justice but little comfort. Judge Marcus Holbrook sentenced Jenna to 10 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 5 years. In his statement, he addressed Jenna directly. "Mrs. Beasley, your actions were born of desperation, but they resulted in an unforgivable tragedy. You failed in your most fundamental duty as a parent, to protect your child. This sentence reflects not only the severity of your actions, but also the hope that you will reflect on the consequences of your choices and emerge a changed person." In the months following the trial, the impact of Noah's tragic story continued to resonate throughout Arizona. The case sparked discussions about mental health support for struggling families, the dangers of prescription drug abuse, and the pressures faced by young people in difficult financial circumstances. Noah's friends organized a memorial memorial concert in Cottonwood, celebrating his life and his love for music. The event raised funds for a scholarship in Noah's name, aimed at helping young musicians pursue their dreams. Gertrude Hartford Beasley, her reputation in ruins, sold her Sedona home and moved away, reportedly to a small town in New Mexico, where she could escape the whispers and stares of those who knew her story. Jenna Beasley began serving her sentence at the Arizona State Prison Complex in Perryville. According to prison officials, she enrolled in counseling programs and expressed a desire to understand and atone for her actions. As for Detective Marla Grunwald, the case left an indelible mark on her career. She became an advocate for increased resources for financial literacy programs and mental health support in rural communities, hoping to prevent future tragedies born of desperation and misguided love. The Red Rocks of Sedona continue to draw visitors, seeking spiritual enlightenment and natural beauty. But for those who know the story, they also stand as a silent memorial to Noah Beasley, a young man whose life was cut tragically short by the very people who should have nurtured his dreams. In the end, Noah's story serves as a chilling reminder that sometimes the greatest dangers we face come not from strangers, but from those closest to us. It's a tale of love twisted by desperation, of dreams crushed by greed, and of a young life snuffed out far too soon. As we reflect on this tragedy, we're left to wonder, how well do we really know the people we call family? And at what point does the desire for a better life corrupt the very love that drives us? If you enjoyed this case, then make sure to watch the next one shown on screen.